Hi everyone. So I wanted to share my thoughts on this MAC Pro Longwear waterproof brow set. This is something that is new. It is permanent, but from what I understand, it's not permanent at the counters. It's only permanent at MAC stores. So you can order it online, but if you don't have a MAC store available, accessible, then unfortunately you can only see it in store at a counter for a short period of time. I don't know why a brow product would only be available at stores. I find that kind of irritating, especially when it really helps to see them in person. Before I was dyeing my hair red, I needed to have ultra cool toned products, otherwise everything goes orange on me. Now that works in my favor just because I'm looking for very warm brow products to work with my hair. So the collection had these waterproof brow sets as well as the fluid line brow gel creams, I think they're called. Those had come out before, I believe, and it was limited edition, and that was a year or two ago, something like that. And they were really popular. They came back when I went to Macy's to look at the collection and pick up a few things. They were already almost out of stock of everything. So a lot of people were stocking up. You know, she offered, do you want to buy two? They're not going to be at the counter for very long, etc. So I think people were kind of stockpiling, even though it's still going to be available. So I have one of MAC's brow sets, tinted brow sets, and the Pro Longwear waterproof brow set. When I went to the counter, I had intended to get a waterproof one, but there was some mix-up with the makeup artist I was working with, and she ended up suggesting the show-off brow set, non-waterproof, and I like it. I went with it, but it has some definite differences from the Pro Longwear. The main difference, I think, product aside, I find them to work pretty similarly, is the brush. So you can see here, the regular brow set has a big brush, the new waterproof brow set has a tiny brush. It reminds me of the brush in the Benefit Gimme Brow product, which I have not seen in person, but I have seen a lot online, and I was thinking about getting it, but Benefit products tend to be quite expensive, more expensive than necessary, and I thought the MAC options had a good range of colors and the price was good. So my kind of situation with brows, I'll insert a little clip here of me applying it so you can see what my brows look like before I put it on, and that's the only thing I have in my brows today is the waterproof brow set in Red Chestnut. My brow problem, it's a little problem, is that I have a good amount of brow hairs, but they're blonde, and from a distance you just really can't see them on my face, so it can look a little wackadoo, especially if I have dark eye makeup on, to have nothing, basically a really big forehead. It might work on the runway, but in real life it can look a little strange. So what I had normally done was filled in with a powder or used a pencil, and then you're kind of coloring the skin behind the hairs, and something that I would, if I'm in the bathroom and I'm washing my hands and I kind of look down, whatever, that my brows look like they were, it's like they weren't filled in because you could see all this kind of fluffy blonde hair, and it's almost like the color disappeared, so it could just look kind of a little bit funny from different angles. And I've been wanting, let me show you. I have a whole array of tinted brow products. I have this tinted brow gel from Anastasia, and this thing was such a pain in the butt to use at first. It's still difficult, but it's not as bad. See how widely spaced the bristles are? That's crazy. And the product gets loaded into that brush, and it's really wet, and it would just go everywhere. So I would have to scrape and scrape and scrape all the product off. Now it's a little bit more dried out. I've had it for quite a while. It applies more easily, but it's still, oh, it's a hassle. And just to compare the brushes, the regular MAC brow set brush, which is big, compared to the Anastasia. I mean, this one is monstrous. I can't use something like that. So I can't even really say anything about the actual product just because the brush is unusable. I wouldn't recommend it because of the brush. The other problem I have is that the front part of my brows right here and here, they sweat all the time. It might be 65 degrees in our house and I'm cold. There will be little beads of sweat right there. That kills brow products that are sitting on the skin. So I also have oiliness in my brows. So between the sweat and the oil, I basically have to use eye primer in my brows in order to keep the product on there for any amount of time without it getting really patchy looking at the front. And I'm sure you can find videos where I have basically a hole in this brow because it has worn away. I was excited about the waterproof brow set because of the idea that maybe it's waterproof and the little brush. And the price point. Those were the three things that really kind of got me. So I accidentally got the regular brow set, but turns out I really like this color. Since my hair is quite dark right now, if I just use this brow set in my brows, I'll insert a picture of what it looks like when I'm just using this in my brows. I feel like it looks quite natural. It just looks like I have naturally dark brown brow hairs, which is pretty cool. I like the look this gives, but the brush is difficult to deal with. This one is Red Chestnut, and it's a lot lighter look. It's definitely more red looking. It doesn't necessarily go with the red in my hair since my hair is a very unnatural red and this is more of a natural color. But I think it still works because it's a similar tone. It's a softer look. It's less bold than the brow set, the non-waterproof brow set. So I have put these to the test. And my test has been basically every day I spend from 20 to 30 minutes on the treadmill, and especially now that it's more humid and it's a little warm in the house, I sweat like crazy, as in it's running down my face. I'm just a very sweaty person in general. That's probably why my brows sweat even when I'm cold. And so I wasn't doing anything to keep the sweat from going into my brows, so kind of like right here, I would get these little kind of pools of sweat. So I tested both of these products in that situation and I felt like they both pretty much worked the same. Neither of them ran. I didn't have color, coming down on my face from the brow product. By the end of the day, even if I hadn't exercised, I'd say they start looking a little ragged. They don't look as good as when you first apply it. And this I feel like is something that it looks good from a distance and from probably, speaking distance, with other people, but it's not something that looks fabulous up close. It never looks that great, and I feel like during the day it can look a little bit worse. It can look a little patchy. It can look a little clumpy. It doesn't have the best look right up in a mirror. So I feel like a lot of things don't though. I mean, our skin can look pretty horror show if you're zoomed in on it. It does not look that great, but from any reasonable distance it looks fine. So it's just something to keep in mind. If you have your face right up into the mirror, it may not look great, but if you step back a foot, it will look fine. It's just something to think about. So I would say that I can't really tell a difference waterproof wise between the traditional brow set and the waterproof brow set. I would recommend the waterproof brow set just because it has a nicer brush. It's a lot smaller, it's a lot easier to work with, and I'm less likely to get a bunch of the product on my skin. I want to keep it mostly on the brow hair, which I feel like keeps it out of that sweaty, oily fray, you know, and it's less likely to break down just because it's not on the area that's really problematic. So I definitely would recommend the waterproof brow set, and if you can work with a brush, if you're not, since I'm looking to color every single brow hair in my brows, I feel like I need a lot. If you don't need a lot of precision, if you're looking just for something to add a little bit of color, a little thickness maybe to your existing brow hairs, then I think the regular brow set would work great too. It adds a little thickness, I think, to the brow hairs. It does keep them in place somewhat, but it's not rock solid. I would say like the Anastasia, the clear brow gel, that holds everything in place a little bit better. This, you can't feel it on your brows if you kind of move your brows around. It doesn't feel sticky and crunchy, which most brow, like a regular clear brow set will. Almost all of them do, which is, to me, is fine. So if that's something that bugs you, you know, it's maybe that is a plus, but it definitely doesn't keep the hairs in place as well. I will notice the ones I try to trim most of them, but I don't trim the very ends of my brows just because I don't want to lose that length. Especially when I'm using something like a tinted brow gel. I'm just relying on the actual hair there to show up. So they can get a little droopy sometimes. So that's one downside. That will definitely be enhanced if you comb through with a spoolie, especially after it's been dry. That's the best way to do cleanup, I've found, is once it has dried. So say you screw up and get some down here or something, just wait for it to dry. If you go in there when it's wet, it's just going to smear. Wait for it to dry, take a spoolie, the tip of the spoolie, and just kind of get it off. This is also a great way of getting like mascara that you've bumped somewhere. Wait until it's dry, take it off. It's the same kind of concept. But yeah, if you find that it's too heavy, brushing through with a spoolie can work. It works best when it's dry, but then you really kind of lose the hold aspect of the brow sets. So it can work when it's wet, but I find a lot of times that will end up kind of smearing it on the skin, which is what I'm trying to avoid. So I think I probably have rambled on enough about these. So just kind of in review, the Anastasia one would not recommend, and I would definitely recommend the waterproof brow set from MAC because of the brush. Otherwise, I think the regular brow set is pretty great as well, and I was quite surprised with the performance. It really did well when I put it through a super sweaty test. It definitely did not look exactly perfect, but neither did the waterproof brow set when I put it through that test either. So I hope this was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you are having a great day, and I'll see you soon.